All right, so today's deep dive is going to be about like flipping the script. Basically, we're diving into how to take what we think are our biggest weaknesses, right? Right? And turn them into like serious advantages. And no, it's not some kind of Jedi mind trick or anything. We're talking about a real deal coaching strategy from, get this, professional rugby.
Wow.
Yeah,
Rugby
rugby.
is big.
We're going to be digging into an article called Kryptonite Meetings, How Rugby Players Turn Weaknesses into Winning Strategies. And it's by this guy, Emil Walton. He's a like seasoned rugby coach, been around a block. And he's found this really unique approach to building a winning team, which I think we can all, learn from.
For sure.
So Kryptonite Meetings, right? It's kind of like counterintuitive, don't you think? It's almost like, what if Superman hosted a Kryptonite convention,
Yeah.
You've got these like elite athletes, top of their game, and instead of focusing on all the amazing things they do, their strengths, they're encouraged to, get this, talk about their weaknesses. I mean, why would anyone do that? It seems kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like this unspoken rule, right? Like in pretty much every area of life, whether it's sports, work, whatever, even our personal lives.
Right.
There's this thing where we're supposed to downplay our weaknesses,
Right.
right? You got to act confident. You got to highlight those strengths.
Put your best foot forward.
Exactly. And hope that nobody notices the rest.
Right. Like we're all just like hiding our kryptonite.
Exactly.
But in these kryptonite meetings, they totally flip that script.
Exactly.
It's wild.
It is. And you know what I think is so fascinating about it? Emil Walton, the coach, he recognized how limiting that mindset actually is.
Right.
He understood that everyone, even the best of the best, have those vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And instead of pretending they don't exist, he decided to make them part of the plan, part of the game plan.
Wow.
Which, of course, to do that, you need a strong foundation of trust.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Big time, Shel.
Because you can't really expect people to like lay bare their insecurities if they're worried about, being judged or ridiculed.
Exactly. And Walton actually talks about this in the article, about how he and his coaching staff, they really had to focus on creating this culture of openness and psychological safety.
So it's not about like, calling people out for their shortcomings.
No.
But it's about like creating an environment where they feel comfortable actually acknowledging like, hey, this is where I struggle.
Yes, exactly.
That's really interesting.
It is. It's like instead of brushing those vulnerabilities under the rug, they made it part of the conversation, which is, when you really think about it, kind of revolutionary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. But how do they actually like pull that off? How do you create that kind of safety and trust, especially in such a high-pressure world like professional sports?
Well, it started with them shifting the entire team's perspective on what it means to be strong. It wasn't about hiding your weaknesses. It was about acknowledging them as a team and finding ways to support each other.
So it's less about Superman conquering all and more about the Justice League working together.
Yes. Exactly.
I like that.
And in this team-oriented environment, admitting a weakness wasn't seen as a failure. It was seen as an opportunity for growth.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot.
It changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. It totally changes the game. And that's what's so fascinating about this whole kryptonite meeting concept. It's like they're taking something that's traditionally seen as negative, this idea of weakness, and they're turning it into a positive force for the entire team.
Absolutely. And that's what's so powerful about this approach. It's not just about individual performance. It's about collective growth and resilience. And that's something that we can all learn from, regardless of whether we're athletes, business leaders, or just trying to navigate the challenges of everyday life.
So true. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that by embracing our vulnerabilities and supporting each other, we can achieve incredible things. And that's what we're going to be exploring further in today's deep dive.
Okay, so they've shifted the team's whole mindset, right? They've built this foundation of trust. Everyone's on board.
Right.
Now it's time for the main event, the actual kryptonite meeting. What actually goes down in these meetings?
Well, Walton describes it as this space for radical honesty.
Okay.
Where players are actually encouraged to share their self-assessed weaknesses openly with the whole team.
Wow.
And it's not about public shaming or anything like that.
Right.
It's about strategic vulnerability.
Okay, I like that. Strategic vulnerability.
Yeah.
So give me an example. Would a player actually say, hey, I tend to choke under pressure?
Exactly.
Or like, I'm not great at defending against, fast breaks or whatever.
Exactly. Things that they might normally try to hide
Right.
or downplay.
But by bringing them to light, they open up this whole world of possibilities for the team.
Yeah, because instead of these weaknesses being like hidden liabilities, they become, shared challenges
Right.
that the team can actually like strategize around.
Exactly. And Walden actually gives this great example in the article.
Yeah.
He talks about this one player who was known for his incredible speed
Okay,
and agility on the field.
got it.
Like, this guy was a scoring machine.
Okay, so classic speed over strength kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm guessing this is where the Kryptonite meeting really like proves its worth.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
they had created this culture of openness.
Right.
The team knew about this player's, vulnerability in terms of tackling.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't see it as a weakness to be exploited. They saw it as a puzzle to solve together.
Okay, so how did they adapt their strategy based on that?
Well, during the game, the other players would actually adjust their positioning on the field to compensate.
Wow, so they were like literally having his back?
Exactly. Think about the message that sends to that player.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's not about hiding your shortcomings. It's about trusting your teammates to have your back.
Right, which can be so empowering.
Absolutely.
And then from a like strategic standpoint, it makes the entire team, more adaptable, more resilient
Exactly.
because they're not just relying on like one person's strengths.
Exactly. It's not just about masking weaknesses. It's about transforming them into this collective strength.
I love that.
Like, they become less like kryptonite, more like, tools in their arsenal.
I love that analogy. It's not just individual superpowers. It's like the whole team working together to overcome any obstacle. That's so cool.
And that's where the real magic of this approach comes in, I think.
Mhm.
It's not just about the tactics on the field. It's about the impact it has on the team dynamics.
And one thing I found really interesting, Walton talks about how these Kryptonite meetings, they didn't just like improve their strategy.
Yeah.
He actually says that they strengthen the team's like cohesion.
Absolutely. And it makes sense, right? When you think about it, vulnerability, when it's met with support and understanding, can be incredibly bonding.
Right.
It creates this sense of shared purpose. Like you're facing these challenges as a united front.
Yeah, it's like they've gone from just a team of individuals to like a true team.
Exactly.
Every sense of the word.
Yes. And that shift in mindset, that feeling of we're in this together, that can be so powerful. And not just in sports.
Right.
I mean, think about any area of life where you need teamwork, collaboration. It's essential.
So true. So true. Okay, but what does this all mean for those of us who aren't, professional athletes? Like, can we actually use this whole Kryptonite meeting concept in our own lives?
Absolutely. Think
Yep.
about like your workplace, right?
Okay.
Have you ever been in a situation where maybe a project was struggling
Mm-hmm.
because people were afraid to like speak up about their limitations
Huddle all the time.
or ask for help?
Totally. Everyone wants to look like they have it all figured out,
Right.
even when they're like secretly drowning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the principles of the Kryptonite meeting can be so valuable.
Okay.
It's about creating a culture where it's okay to say, hey, this is where I struggle, or I could really use some support on this.
It's about moving away from that like culture of competition
yes,
to a culture of collaboration.
Exactly. And the key is it all starts with trust.
Right. Just like, Walton and his team.
Just like Walden had to create that foundation of psychological safety,
Yeah.
we have to work on building those environments where being vulnerable is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
That's so important. I love that. So as we wrap things up here, let's like bring this back to our listeners. What's one tangible thing they could do starting like today to apply this Kryptonite meeting concept to their own lives?
That's such a good question. I think a great place to start is to simply ask yourself, what's one area, whether it's, professional or personal, where you could benefit from a little bit more support?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
Could be anything.
Right.
And then think about, who do you trust? It could be a colleague, a friend, a mentor, whoever it might be,
Right.
and open up to them.
Yeah. Share your like kryptonite, so to speak.
Exactly. And you might be surprised by how receptive they are
Totally.
and how much stronger you actually become as a result of that vulnerability.
It's about taking those perceived weaknesses and turning them into opportunities for growth, for connection.
Couldn't said it better myself.
Well, this was fantastic. A huge thank you to you for, as always, coming on and helping us unpack this concept.
My pleasure. Always fun to chat with you.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new today and that you feel inspired to embrace your own kryptonite as a catalyst for growth. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.